Okay, good morning, everybody. It's the Performance and Overview Scrutiny Committee, and anybody who may be watching online, you're very welcome. Borida, Shemai, particularly for the first item in this report in this agenda. And we're going to start, first of all, Robert, with apologies.
Just the one today, Chair. We've got Councillor Stephen Garrett and we have Councillor Tudor Thomas here as a substitute.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, for substituting. And do we have any declarations of interest? Yes, yes. Councillor Howells.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, under special procedures, we operate an osteopathic practice that does dry needling, so I declare pecuniary interest.
Thank you. And that's in regard to item number 5, yeah? On public protection. Noted and thanks. So item 3, public open forum. Robert, has there been any?
No one today, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the first main item on the agenda today, which is the Welsh Language Annual Report, and welcoming the Cabinet Member, Councillor Sandals, along with officers. I'd be very grateful. We've got a number of officers in the meeting this morning for different reports. If you'd be kind enough to introduce yourselves and your role at the point that you're perhaps just going to speak, that would be very helpful. And I don't know, Councillor Sandals, did you want to introduce this report? And we'll take it from there and then raise our questions. Thank you.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Bore da bawb. I'll just give a brief introduction. Yn gyntaf, hoffwn ddiolch i'r rhai sydd wedi dod a Nia a Penny i'r adroddiad hwn. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to our officers Nia and Penny who brought us this report. Nia is continually working to promote the Welsh language throughout Monmouthshire County Council. You will hear and have read that more staff are engaging with learner courses, and these courses are, of course, open to elected members too. Just contact Nia or Penny. As we know, the Welsh language is a vital part of Monmouthshire's heritage and identity, and this report reflects our ongoing commitment to supporting its growth and everyday use across the authority. We are required to comply with 176 Welsh language standards, grouped into 5 key areas: service delivery, policy making, operational promotion and record keeping. This annual report fulfills statutory duties under standards 158, 164 and 170 and helps us identify what's working well and what we need to improve. A few key highlights are: we received 2 public complaints and were contacted by the Welsh Language Commissioner regarding 2 other matters. One's now resolved, the other's still under review. 53 staff undertook Welsh language courses this year, up from 40 last year. Courses are fully funded, flexible and delivered by colleague Gwent. In March, we launched a new telephony system, allowing Welsh speakers to connect directly with a Welsh-speaking advisor. If unavailable, calls revert to our existing bilingual team. Due to growing demand and financial pressures, we're reviewing our translation service model to ensure long-term sustainability, with all options guided by a Welsh language impact assessment. I'll now hand over to our Welsh Language Officer, Nia, who can give us some more detail and answer any questions. Diolch bawb.
Da iawn, and moving across to Nia.
Do you want me to introduce? Hi, my name is Penny Walker. I'm the Equalities and Welsh Language Manager. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction as well. Obviously, I'm pleased to present this year's Welsh Language Annual Monitoring Report, which outlines Monmouthshire County Council's performance against the Welsh language standards during 24-25. Welsh language remains a vital part of the cultural fabric of our communities. Our commitment to its promotion is firmly embedded in both our community and core corporate plan and our Welsh language strategy. This report is not only a statutory requirement under the Welsh language standards, but also a reflection of our broader aspiration to see the language thrive across Monmouthshire. It sets out how we have complied with standards applicable to the Council and highlights the progress made, the challenges encountered and the areas where further development is needed. Notable highlights this year include our work to promote the Welsh language within the workforce, and this has included initiatives such as the inclusion of Welsh tips in the staff newsletter and the utilisation of the dedicated Cymraeg Teams channel for Welsh-speaking and learning staff and the active promotion of Welsh language training offer. In addition, at the end of the reporting period, our internal audit team conducted a non-opinion review of the Council's compliance with the Welsh language standards. The findings from this review are already shaping our priorities for the coming year, and we are in the process of developing a robust action plan in response. We look forward to providing a full update on this in the next annual monitoring report and sharing the progress we've made. I invite the committee to scrutinise the report and provide feedback that will help shape and strengthen our ongoing efforts to embed the Welsh language across all aspects of our work. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. And Nia, did you want to add anything? Bear in mind we have read the report, but if there's anything you wanted to add, please do.
Nothing specific to add, just to introduce myself. I'm Nia Roberts, I'm the Welsh Language Officer, and just to say thank you for obviously reading the report and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much. And we will open the meeting to questions from members of the committee. Councillor Strong.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Just one question from me. You make reference to exploring more cost-effective delivery models, always something that's of interest to councillors, obviously. And you identify 3 options that are being explored: in-house, outside providers, and collaboration with, I think it's collaboration with other local authorities. Yeah. Can I ask, is it possible to give some indication as where we are on that journey of exploration? Are some of those options being sort of downgraded or ruled out, whereas others are emerging as perhaps the favourites? Yeah, might be a bit early in that journey, but it'd be useful to know.
Thank you, Councillor Strong. Who wants to pick that up?
I'm happy to answer that one. So at the moment, the option that is looking the more desirable is to join with Torfaen, so for them to do our translations through that. Because Torfaen obviously is similar to Monmouthshire in the types of documents that we'll be translating, it will mean it will be easier for the translators to do those translations because of the similarities. Torfaen also they've got different systems where kind of memory systems, so when you're translating it's able to remember what it's translated to before, so it would be much more consistent in terms of kind of what we're referring certain things to in Welsh, if that makes sense. So yeah, Torfaen at the moment is looking like the most desirable option, and we're still kind of looking into making sure that everything is going smoothly with that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, that sounds a very sensible option to me, looking at it from literally outside. But yes, thank you.
Yeah, just on Councillor Strong's question, are there any opportunities to work within Monmouthshire with other public authorities, police, fire and rescue, NHS, to try and share practice and do an even better job?
In terms of sharing practice, we already, so Monmouthshire is part of the group DEDF, which is a Welsh language officer group in South East Wales. So we already kind of share good practice in those meetings. So different officers will bring up different issues, or they might say what they're working on, things like that. So we definitely work together with the local authorities in the area. We also collaborate worked with others on the More Than Just Words plan, which is the social care plan. So we've got a More Than Just Words Gwent plan for that, and we meet and to help to kind of progress with making sure that the active offer is given. So I think, although it's more of a bright, more broader examples of working together, but yeah, I think in terms of translation, it would be a positive move if we were to move to Torvine, because we would also strengthen our connections with another local authority as well.
Sounds very good, Nia. Just the comment, it doesn't need to be one or the other. It can be all of these, but very interesting that we're making that move. Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Bond next, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the report and all the good work you're doing. Thank you. So I was interested, you just mentioned, Penny, about a non-opinion internal audit review. I'm interested in what a non-opinion review is, so I guess that's factual. That's the first one, please. And then there's a number of statements, for example, page 9, standards 24 to 26. Further on, there's monitoring and login compliance, monitor to ensure compliance. Have we got a target of 100%? I mean, that's excessive, I know, but do we have a target? Do we have a measure against that target that you are trying to work towards when you're monitoring? And the other thing was, I noticed in the list of standards there's some missing. Are they not relevant? Sort of 23, 69, 70, 85, and then 94 to 98. Are they not relevant to your report and needing to be responded to, please? I'm sure there's a reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. And again, who wants to pick these up? Penny?
Thank you. So the internal audit was we asked our audit team to have a look at Welsh language. So the chief auditor updated governance and the audit committee about the internal audit, and based on their findings, we are developing an action plan. It's helped us to really hone in on where we are most compliant and where we are not so compliant, and to be able to devise an action plan that we can attack those areas where we are not so compliant. So it wasn't an official audit, hence why it was just called an internal opinion audit.
Chair, sorry, it says non-opinion.
A non-opinion audit.
Oh, right, okay, thank you, I get it, thank you.
Thank you. And the missing standards question?
So in terms of the report and the missing standards, so the way that I draft my this report is the Welsh Language Commissioner has a guidance kind of paper on how we should write the report. So I use that to gauge what should be included and everything like that. So that's what's been used to guide the report. But I would be more than happy, any standards that aren't on there, I'd be more than happy to give a full update on that for you as well.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And Councillor Bond, did you have any? Were you concerned about any of these answers?
Just that when you're saying you're monitoring to look at compliance, are you expecting? Are you tracking against each of those whether they've been, 100% compliant, or, and then whether there's an ongoing measure, then a target or a measure that can be looked at ongoing? Thank you.
Thank you. I think in terms of compliance, we always aim for 100%. Unfortunately, that might not always be the case. I think the audit non-opinion review, we will obviously report fully on that in the next report, but from that we can see where we're doing well and where we're sometimes not doing as well. So in terms of my monitoring, when I go over the different standards and our work, I'm looking for 100%. that's not always possible. So the aim is to get us to 100%. So by doing the monitoring work, for example, on the website, I'll do kind of regular monitoring on that just to check in terms of the standards. Issues do come up, and when those issues come up, I log them. I get in contact with either the website officer or the officer in charge of those pages and get the issues resolved. So yeah, we aim for 100% if we can.
Thank you, Nia.
Yeah.
And sorry, Councillor Bond, briefly, please.
So I guess when you're logging them in the future, we can see if there's any change in year on year. An improvement. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. We'll be able to see any changes, and I think the main one we'll see next year from the non-opinion review of the audit team did. We're now working on an action plan, so that action plan will kind of guide our work for the following year. In the next report, we'll give a detailed feedback on that, so update on everything that's been happening.
Thank you, Nia, and thank you, Councillor Bond. So on to Councillor Buckler.
Hello, thank you very much for your report, and I think we all have a very keen interest in how the Welsh language is being embedded into Monmouthshire Council, so thank you very much. One thing, you mentioned staff training and uptake of courses, and you say that 53 staff completed a Welsh language course in 24-25, which is an increase from 40 the previous year. Can you tell us what level these courses were, and sort of what was completed, and also how will you ensure that the Welsh and English versions of digital platforms, especially in My Monmouthshire app and the website, remain fully aligned in quality, content and functionality, as identified in the internal audit? So it'd be useful to know that. Thank you. I had picked up on the internal audit and governance along with Councillor Bond, so I won't go into that because you've given a fulsome reply. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckler. Nia, did you want to pick up on that? You've got in the report quite a good breakdown of the different levels.
Yeah, so in the report we've got the breakdown of the different levels. So in terms of the Mynediad level, so there was 36 staff members this year doing the Mynediad level. That's the very first level of learning. And then for the Sylfaen, which is the foundation, I think we've got 12 that have completed the Sylfaen level. So those are broken into separate levels. So you've got Mynediad 1, which is 1 year of learning, Mynediad 2, another year. After Mynediad 2, that's when the officer has the choice of doing an exam if they want to get an official qualification for that. And then again, on each level, they're split into 2, which is 2 years. So we are seeing, if we look at the Sylfaen level, the Sylfaen 1, so last year we had 1 person completing the Sylfaen 1 level. This year it's 9. So I think there seems to be a pattern that would suggest that staff are carrying on with these courses when they initially start them, which is very positive. I hope that answers your question on that one.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted, I wanted to sort of highlight really, if we're going in the right direction. So that's very useful to know.
And the question about the app, Nia.
So yeah, with digital platforms and ensuring that they are consistent with English and Welsh, I think this is a challenge. it's particularly a challenge on things like the website, because the way that web pages are uploaded, there's different officers that have control for their own pages. So in terms of making sure that they are kept consistent, I use things like the Welsh language tip in the newsletter. So I'll put information in there about tips about how to do the websites and how to do things online like social media and things like that. And then in terms of training as well, I have been in some meetings with the Welsh language, the website officer, sorry, I'm the Welsh language officer. But yeah, so I attend some of the meetings with the website officer that he holds with all the website authors, and in that I'll just have a little section where I let them know what the requirements are to the Welsh language, and in monitoring as well. So I do a lot of monitoring throughout the year with the website. Any issues that I pick up, I take it to the website author and the website officer, and then to get those resolved. So it is a challenge, but it's a case of making sure that everybody is aware of what they need to do and how to get the translations as well through the translation service.
Thank you, Nia. And Councillor Buckley, are you happy with that?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, obviously there's it is difficult from what you're saying, but you're fully aware of that, so that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And item or section 4 of your report itemises the Welsh language skills across the organisation, and showing 392 currently employees with Welsh language skills at different levels. It does pull out of that. The fluent Welsh speakers are a number of 48 spread across the different directorates, which means that in some directorates there are just 1 or 2, which can place obviously quite a strain, and because usable skills, I imagine, would need to be fluent, very least intermediate, but it's well set out there in section 4. So moving on to Councillor Thomas.
Okay, diolch Gadeirydd, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. Diolch yn fawr am y cyfle I siarad heddi yn y cyfarfod. I just want to ask a fairly simple question. If I wanted to speak to someone today in Welsh at a senior level, or the person I wanted to speak to is at a senior level, and I wanted to use Welsh, who could I speak to?
Yeah, at a senior level, I think that would be difficult. Obviously, we try to encourage staff to learn Welsh, but it's quite a commitment to undertake courses. And that's why we're so thankful to the staff that do undertake those courses, because it does take a long time to complete. And I think particularly with kind of senior level staff, it's a lot out of their time to be able to commit to learn Welsh. So we have been having some discussions and trying to think about how we can help those in kind of senior leadership roles to integrate more Welsh and to learn more Welsh, essentially. So one of the things that we're going to be working on now in the coming year is improving the resources available on the hub, on the staff intranet. So on there, I want there to be more kind of information about commonly used words and phrases. So the aim is to get some recordings on there on how people can say those words and phrases, just to integrate more Welsh into their work. But yeah, it would be a challenge at the moment to be able to speak to someone on senior leadership level in Welsh.
Thank you, Nia. Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, the point that I'd make is we had a fire in Abergavenny some months ago at a big sort of old shop, etc. And S4C, the Welsh medium newyddion, phoned me, and I think somebody from the authority phoned me because they wanted somebody to go on newyddion at Saith, on the news at 7 in Welsh, and there was no one from the authority who could speak to them. And really, if we want to really promote the language and show that we, and we are part of Wales, we come in under all the Welsh standards, etc. But if we're not able to do that, I just think it's quite a poor show, really. It shows that there is, to a certain degree, a little bit of lack of commitment to have somebody who can actually speak to the media in the Welsh language. And most authorities would have been able to get somebody to speak. But I understand the difficulties, and thanks for your answer. Diolch am yr ateb. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. In situations like that, it would very often be the cabinet member who would be asked to represent in that circumstance. But I know that occurred on a Sunday, and it might have been difficult for people to be reached. It's difficult to know at this point. But well-made point. The next on the hands up is Councillor Howells.
I think.
Sorry, am I missing somebody?
Yeah.
Okay, it's showing the other way around on my screen for whatever reason. So, Martin, I've got, it doesn't really matter, I've got Councillor Howells down on my screen on two screens as first. So I'm going to ask you, Councillor Howells.
Thank you, Chair. Diolch, Cadeirydd. Obviously Welsh speaking is a bit of a challenge in our border county. I do wear my lanyard and badge at every opportunity. It's a simple initiative that identifies you as a Welsh speaker or a learner. And for anyone that wants one of these lanyards, they're available at the reception. I've just been given a whole bag here as well, and I believe there's little badges.
You're not selling these, are you, Councillor Howells?
I'm plugging the Welsh language. How successful have these initiatives, like the Orange Badge, the lanyards, the Welsh Tip, Cymraeg Teams channel, and Diwrnod Shwmae, been in encouraged staff to use Welsh language in their daily operations? Are there any further plans to promote them? And are there any plans to run any initiatives around the Diwrnod Shwmae, which I think you had a quiz last year? I believe it's in October sometime. Yeah. Are there any initiatives that you're working on to promote Welsh language?
Thank you. And Nia, did you want to pick up?
Yeah. So all these initiatives, like you say, the lanyards are a great thing because when you wear them, people are able to see straight away that you're a Welsh speaker or a Welsh learner. I think if we look at the number of staff that are doing the Welsh courses, the fact that they are increasing each year, I think that shows that it's having some kind of effect, and people are seeing how important speaking or learning Welsh is. So in terms of the Welsh Tip in the staff newsletter, I do find that tends to have a good reaction. When I put things in the staff newsletter, what tends to happen is I might get a few messages or emails just to ask for some extra information or anything like that. So yeah, they do seem to be working well. One of the feedback that I've gotten, because coming to the end of the Welsh language courses, I try to do a feedback survey for those that have attended the courses. So one of the feedback I've noticed is that people have really enjoyed their courses, but they want more opportunities to use that Welsh within their work. So we are looking at different things that we can do, different initiatives that we can take on to kind of to give those opportunities to staff. So hopefully that might be something that we'll be able to feedback on in the next report. And I'm not sure if there was Shwmae Day, sorry. So yeah, so we try to kind of highlight these kind of days throughout the year. Sometimes that can be a challenge, just in terms of resources. So Shwmae Day is one of the ones that hopefully I will have something planned for, but still in the planning stages for now. But yeah, it is really important to highlight those days.
Thank you. Councillor Howes, are you content?
Yeah, very. Thanks for that, Nia. Thank you.
Very helpful. And moving on to Councillor Newell.
Thank you, Chair. And lovely to speak to Mia and her colleagues. Just had someone knock on my door. I'm just going to be a little bit self-indulgent just for a second. I was lucky enough to sing on the main stage at the National Eisteddfod in Abergavenny when the Eisteddfod came here, which is great. And I would love to take the opportunity to do the Welsh course for MCC staff because I think that would help me. This isn't really part of this report, but the ideas that you have for the staff of Monmouthshire County Council in learning the Welsh language, moving forward, is there a way I can have a discussion with a member of your team to how we can push that out to the wider audience in Monmouthshire? Because my colleagues at the Male Voice Choir would love to learn Welsh, but we don't find there's enough opportunity within our town and area. So it may be a chat for another day, but there is the appetite amongst the general public to also learn Welsh. And if I could work with you, that would be absolutely brilliant. I'm taking advantage of the opportunity because you're sat there in front of me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Newell. That sounds like an offer rather than a question, and a really good offer too. So it's really good. You've also given us an idea for how, in future reports, how we introduce it, with you starting off singing the national anthem. That would be the obvious concomitant of that comment. I'm not sure how many of us would want to join in, but the great baritone voices that are in this chamber. So thank you for that. And I don't know, Nia, if there was anything you wanted to add to that, but it sounds to me like very much an offer rather than anything.
Yeah, just a kind offer, and we would love to accept and work with you with that.
So great. Just to conclude, one area that I think would be very helpful for residents, and that is the report talks about 176 Welsh standards. We're a transparent organisation, and there is nothing that displays how much all of this work costs our residents, given that the vast and overwhelming majority are not Welsh speakers. It would be, of course, transparent and appropriate to let them know. Is there a reason why we don't collate how much the Welsh language work that we do as an authority costs? I can't see why we don't. We collate everything else.
Yeah, we do collate the cost for Welsh language. Our major cost is translations, which we are addressing. They have been consistently going over budget, so we are, as we mentioned before, looking at the option of joining Torfaen, which would help to reduce the cost of that. Other than that, the costs are mainly Nia's and my salary, and the rest we do as part of our work. There are no other real costs other than making sure that we're compliant in terms of people, to come to those standards, and that is part of every officer's role within the council, is to make sure that those standards are met. But in terms of cost, that is part of everyone's day-to-day role.
So Penny, that's really helpful, but I was just trying to find out what is the total cost,
sorry,
more than anything else.
So for the cost for last year was £226,940.95p.
Thank you. That's very accurate. Well, I'm assuming it's accurate. It sounds like it's accurate. It does lead to also the other question I had, which is with the extraordinary development of AI. Are there opportunities to use AI as a translation capability? I see there's quite a lot of movement towards looking at digital approaches, but does that offer new opportunities to bring the costs down after some initial investment?
Yeah, so AI does offer some opportunities to reduce cost. The important thing to think about with AI is that we can't rely on it 100%. So in terms of translations, we would never be able to get rid of a human translator. For example, we would always need to have some kind of proofreading to make sure that the translations are accurate. So at the moment, in terms of translations, moment, we're using external translators. So they might already be utilising similar kind of systems, which may be reducing their time it takes to complete translations. But because of the current kind of layout, we get charged per word at the moment, so we wouldn't be able to utilise those in the current kind of process that we have, and that's part of the reason why we're rethinking, along with obviously because the budget is being overspent on translations at the moment. We're trying to think of how we can make sure that we're keeping to the budget. So if with Torvine, for example, they have different systems. So one of them is a kind of translation memory tool. So when they do their translations, the system will already kind of remember certain aspects they might have already been translated before. So in terms of that, we might be able to utilise some of those tools through Torvine that we couldn't at the moment.
Sounds very interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting development there. It sounds like we're saying that AI doesn't speak Welsh very well. So it's one that they're obviously the tech bros are going to have to do some more work on it. But Lou, thank you for that. That's very helpful indeed. And I think that's a legacy hand, Councillor Howells. But thank you for the responses. Thank you for the questions. And I'm going to move the report, which is very much for us to scrutinise and to note. So thank you. And we will now move on to the item number 5 in the agenda, allowing for I think officers just to do the shugle around. Thank you again. Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Nia. Okay, we're going to start with agenda item number 5 or move on to agenda item number 5 on public protection performance. And what we're here to do is to review the performance of the service area as we've done in previous years. And we're looking to consider any particular area of interest. And this covers a breadth and a scope that residents may well want to have some clarity about, including environmental health, trading standards, and animal health and licensing. So I don't know who wants to pick up. We've got a number of officers, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves before they speak and their role, if you'd be kind enough to do so. I don't know who wishes to start. Would it be Jane Rogers? Thank you, Jane.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased today to be sharing the annual report into the performance of the public protection area for the Council. As we do every year, as Chair has said. Public protection is a relatively small team, but it provides an absolutely essential part of the Council's public-facing work. The report illustrates the critical role that public protection plays in supporting local businesses, ensuring the health and safety of residents, protecting some of our more vulnerable citizens, supporting the farming community and protecting the welfare of animals. All of these things are absolutely critical to our Council's work. And I would like to say also that the team works under a huge amount of legislation, more so than even social care.
And that is saying something, Jane.
And they have within that a really clear enforcement role. And the team never shy away from that. But at the same time, they undertake their duties based on a genuine care for people, with a vast amount of experience and professionalism, and where they never lose sight of the high importance of building relationships to ensure that their work is undertaken in the best way for people. It's really great that the team have come to represent themselves, and so I will hand over to my colleagues who I know want to, as you said, Chair, introduce themselves, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Jane. I'm just going to introduce you Strategic Director, one of the senior team in the Council, and it's really good to have you here. So yeah, we're moving on. If you bear in mind, please, colleagues, that we've read the report. So if you're introducing it, if you could just bear in mind, just pick out what might be the key points that you wish to identify, and we'll move straight into questions at that point. So who wishes to start?
Good morning. Bore da. Diolch yn fawr. My name's Alan Thomas. I'm one of the principal officers in the commercial team in environmental health. The commercial team is responsible for a broad range of functions, including food safety, health and safety, special procedures legislation, private water supplies, and some public nuisance work as well, statutory nuisance work. My role is to lead the team in the food side of things, and that's food safety and food standards. Food safety being the sort of hygiene of food premises, inspection of food premises, whereas food standards is more to do with sort of description and labelling and composition of food, which in some areas is done by trading standards. But in Monmouthshire, it's a combination of food safety and food standards at each visit that we do, which we find works very well because we sort of integrate work. Things like allergen control and things like that is integrated into the work that we do with hygiene, because many of the controls that we're looking at and assessing are the same. I think we've had a very good year. We are audited by the Food Standards Agency, and we're in the middle of collating all the information for an audit they're going to be doing with us soon. But looking back at our business improvement plans, we've hit some very good targets. We managed to do all of our high-risk food premises last year. We completed 600, it's in the report, 630 full inspections, 281 other visits to do things like sampling and verification and revisits. So in all, there were 911 interventions carried out by our team, which is up from last year, particularly in the area after COVID. because nothing much happened with food premises and we weren't allowed to visit. Now, after COVID, we were given a food safety recovery plan from the Food Standards Agency, which we had to get back on track with our high-risk premises by the end of, I think it was March 2023, which we did, but that still left quite a backlog of our lower risk premises. When I say high risk, we're looking at pubs and restaurants, places that generally handle open food or manufacture food, that kind of thing, whereas the lower risk then tend to be the shops and the village halls and the football clubs and things like that. With quite a few of them left over, but we did through some help from the Aneurin Bevan Health Board. There was some funding there, so we did take on an extra officer who rattled through the backlog of low-risk inspections, and she did a great job of that for us. So we're looking good, I think. We've got our backlog of inspections down to a very manageable level now, and as I say, we're heading into an audit with the Food Standards Agency in July. The submission of the documentation is this week, so quite a lot to do there. Apart from the routine inspection work, the visits to food premises and the rest of it, we deal with service requests. We had 687 service requests. We do food hygiene training. I like to say it's the best food hygiene training you will get. We've got very, very experienced officers out there talking to people who are caterers and the like in the community, and they will tailor their courses to fit whatever kind of catering that people are doing, and it's face to face, and it gets a very, very good response. So we're very proud of that. We also respond to communicable disease notifications. There's a system run by the Health Board for notification of communicable disease, things like Salmonella, Campylobacter, E. coli, all of those infections that we all heard about. And we've got a lead officer which does most of the response to that until there's an outbreak, and then it's all hands on deck. But with 344 cases notified in the year to 25, that's up 100 from the year before. We don't really know why. I spoke to the officer yesterday. There are natural variations in these things. There might be a couple of outbreaks and things like that which push the numbers up. So in all, the total service requests that we did, service requests and complaints, including health and safety, which Chris is going to talk about next, temporary event notices, food and hygiene complaints was 1,566. So it was a busy year. And Chris is going to talk you through the other half of the team, really, which is the health and safety work that we do. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Alan. It's also worth saying thank you for making such a clear statement that you've had a very good year, and nobody is understating that there's an awful lot of effort that has gone into that. But I note also in your report that you've been able to save about 10% of your overall budget whilst doing all that hard work. So thank you on both those counts. So Chris, did you want to pick up?
Thank you, Al. Thank you, Councillor Neil. Chris Williams. I'm Alan's counterpart in the commercial team, Principal Environmental Health Officer. I lead on commercial health and safety enforcement. The health and safety arm of the commercial team deals with inspections, interventions, service requests. We are the vice chairs of the Event Safety Advisory Group, and we also investigate statutory notifiable accidents under the RIDDOR notification scheme. In 24-25, we engaged in 2 national priorities as stipulated by the Health and Safety Executive in looking at electrical safety and gas safety, and some local projects looking at low sill heights and falls from old premises, and also cellar safety checks associated with access to cellar safety in pubs, clubs, restaurants and the like. We saw an uplift in the number of interventions that we recorded for 24-25, and we were able to carry out 145 of those, seen as an uplift from 75 the year before, which we think was a significant achievement. For this year, we'll be looking at Legionella risks in spa pools and hot tubs and accommodation, and also another national priority, which is asbestos duty to manage. Again, a strong emphasis this year on health outcomes as dictated by HSE national priorities. Our team is also involved in the Special Procedures Licensing Scheme. This went live in November 2024, a significant increase in work for us, which replaced the original registration scheme. Special Procedures is tattooing, piercing, electrolysis and acupuncture practices. And there was a transition period fairly recently, and we'll see full enforcement powers come to us in August of this year. We had 48 new applications in Q4 and 11 since April this year, and we continue to license and inspect those premises. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no other comments from the team in front of me, I'm going to open it to questions from the committee members. Just waiting to see if there... Sorry, did somebody else wish to speak before we do that?
Yeah. Do you want us each team to introduce?
It's entirely as you wish. If you'd like to, then please do. Sorry, did you want to start? Did you want to do that? Okay. I'll leave it to you then. Nice and brief if you would.
Thank you, Chair. Bore da, all. My name is Hugh Owen, Principal Environmental Health Officer for the other half of the Environmental Health team. Chris and I'll head up the commercial team. I'm the Public Health team. Thank you for your opportunity to give a summary, a brief overview of some of the headlines for 2024 from my team. We deal with a whole chunk of reactive environmental health caseload, which takes us through the topics and the legislation which Jane mentioned earlier, dealing with the housing, private rented sector, statutory nuisance complaints, noise, light, smoke, environment protection, which picks up fly tipping, abandoned vehicles, dog fouling, pollution issues, caravan sites, pest control, filthy and verminous premises, hoarding, drainage, freedom of information requests, whole swathe of statutory duties. From that, picked up about 2,600 service requests for 2024, dealt with about 2,850 service users. On top of that reactive caseload, we deal with and we try and focus on proactive work which maximises public health impact as best we can. We were successful in introducing the public space protection order for dog controls in Monmouthshire, which started on the 1st of June, so right in the middle of last year. Introduced 5 restrictions, which are expectations, which I think we would all expect with responsible for dog ownership, but really important that the council set out our expectations. Private water supplies, dealt with 42 private water supply inspections. Prosecutions had 2 successful prosecutions for fly tipping, both of which resulted in custodial sentences, although they were suspended. Air quality monitoring, so we monitor the air quality throughout our major towns in Monmouthshire. Very pleased to advise that in Usk, it was the 7th consecutive year where the nitrogen dioxide levels were below the objective levels set by legislation, which means that in 2025 we'll be looking to revoke our air quality management area for Usk, which will leave us just with Chepstow. We work with our petroleum and our major industrial sites in the county from a point of view of pollution. So over 50 of those which we inspect and work with throughout the year. We contribute to the Event Safety Advisory Group with the intention of making sure that the events which are promoted throughout the county, and there's an ever-increasing number of those that they meet our noise control expectations, so that both the event goers and the nearby residents have a great time. And also we deal with our planning and licensing applications, over 300 of those a year, and that really fits in closely to the Wellbeing Future Generations Act, to make sure that any new developments, etc., they do take into account environmental issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hugh. That's a fine canter through some of the key points. Really helpful. And Gareth, did you want to finish and complete the barbershop singing, the quartet?
I'm Gareth Walters. I'm Training Standards and Animal Health Manager. Just to pick up a bit of context really for the report, as obviously you've got the details in front of you. And to be honest, I probably haven't done complete justice to the work that's been done by the team, but obviously happy to pick up any questions. I'd say it's been a particularly difficult year. As small teams, impact on staffing has a significant effect on service delivery, and we've had a couple of team members with particularly difficult personal circumstances this year, so that has had a knock-on effect. But it's great to be able to have some new young team members that have come in, being able to take up the professional qualification. But again, the impact on that, and again with my colleagues across public protection, the impact on being able to develop new members of staff and bring them through the qualification is quite intensive and resource intensive. And that also has an impact then on obviously frontline delivery, and having to prioritise sort of reactive work as opposed to proactive work. Pleased to say though that we do have a regulatory compliance officer apprenticeship now in Wales, so it would be good if we can be able to take advantage of that in the coming years. Particularly this year, I would note success with our feed delivery. It's been particularly effective. We lead for the Greater Gwent region, so we provided a lead regional officer as well as delivering our own work. But one of the biggest impacts that we're finding at the moment is this sort of constant flow of changes and new legislation that's coming through. So as well as single-use vapes, single-use plastics, food and promotion regulations in Wales, trading standards isn't fully devolved as a function, so we still get quite a lot of national legislation which impacts on us. So changes with regards to the consumer protection from unfair trading regulations has been replaced by the Digital Markets Competition and Consumer Act, which, as by the name you can imagine, is quite wide-ranging. The Botulinum Toxin and Cosmetic Fillers Children's Act, which is interesting, and we've got the tobacco and vapes bill that continues its parliamentary journey, as well as sort of the single-use vapes ban has come in place. There's wider regulations obviously that need to be brought in. We've also got an emerging issue around ghost number plates, which again, Trading Standards has got responsibility for registering manufacturers and suppliers of number plates. But of course, we have no involvement in enforcement out on roads, and I think it's been established that actually work done by colleagues elsewhere in the country, this needs very much a proactive joint partnership approach with police colleagues and DVLA. So again, I think I see that as a bit of work that's going to be coming down the line. Increase in scams we've noticed has been quite significant UK-wide, and again an increase in doorstep calls seems to be building again. Another area of particular concern is the animal health disease risk, particularly avian influenza and blue tenet current is growing and becoming a more constant, almost a norm. So as strategic lead for Trading Standards Wales, I work very closely with Welsh Government colleagues, which hopefully sort of helps and brings more resources towards sort of enforcement work. And also the CVO recently accompanied me on a visit to Monmouthshire Livestock Centre, which was very useful for him as well. And I'll leave it there for questions.
Thank you, Gareth. Very interesting. And I think, you know, what you remind us of is that in public protection, the work that you do is not always highly visible to the general public, but if you're not able to carry out the work, or if it ever goes wrong, everyone's looking at you to try and fix it, and sometimes the consequences of things going wrong can be really significant, as they have been in other local authorities in South Wales in different ways. Your point about younger people coming in, I don't know if your experience is like mine, that you can learn just as much from them as they can sometimes learn from you. So having fresh blood coming in can be a really good thing. But your point is well made. I'm opening the report to questions from colleagues in the committee, and I know there are a few questions, so Councillor Strong first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, many thanks for the report. I mean, I think every time we hear the annual report, we're struck by the massive range of things that you have to deal with. Just 3 points. I think each one just asking for a little bit more information or commentary, if I may. Mr. Thomas, you referred to high-risk premises with inspections. Can you just give us a little bit more? Is that all food outlets, and are some food outlets more high risk, or types of food outlet, I should, more high risk than others? Secondly, there's been a welcome fall in FOI requests this year. Is there a clear reason for that? Is that just coming down from a post-COVID spike, or is something else going on there? What sort of projection do you anticipate on that? And thirdly, the reference to ESAG, the safety group, almost for my own benefit, what's the threshold for an event needing to be referred to ESAG in terms of the size of the event or the type of event or whatever? Thank you for those. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Strong. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
I'll go on the first one. High-risk food premises. Yeah, every inspection we do, they are risk-rated based on the nature of the food that they produce, the risk presented. I mean, for example, if you're a manufacturer making pies or something like that, that would tend to put you into the highest risk categories. It also looks at how wide distribution is, how many people they serve to or sell to. It looks, the risks of cross-contamination, if they're handling raw food and ready-to-eat food at the same time. So a butcher shop, for example, would be a good example, where they're handling raw meat on one side of the shop and they're handling maybe some cooked ham or cheese or something on the other side of the shop. So naturally then the risk goes up, because there's a risk of cross-contamination there when, if the staff are having to wash their hands and change their aprons in between, that kind of thing. So that would tend to be the highest risk things that we do. So we categorize them into A, B and C. A would be the manufacturer. B would tend to be things like butcher shop, where there's a higher risk from the nature of what they do. And C then very generally would be your pubs and restaurants and things like that. It does look at, as well as at the level of compliance in that business as well, how well they're doing, how well the hygiene is managed, how good the structure is, how easy is it to clean, how is the ventilation, the lighting, the pest proofing, all of that sort of thing. And then the really crucial one is how well it's being managed. So that is the other consideration. Then takeaways tend to be high risk, again, because they're handling raw and ready to eat food. So we're looking at the management of those, how they manage the controls, and all of that feeds into a risk assessment. And then out of that, sorry, it's taking a while here. Out of that risk assessment then comes the food hygiene rating, of course, the score on the door, So those 3 elements then, when you're looking at the management, looking at the structure, looking at the hygiene that you find on the visit, that's what then feeds into the food hygiene rating. So it doesn't always correlate. Your high-risk premises are going to be higher scores, and generally higher risk premises have got more to comply with, so it's harder for them to achieve the top scores, the 5. But we've got in the report, you could see that we've got very high rating for what we we call broadly compliant premises. We're up to 96.1% broadly compliant, which means that they've scored 3, 4 or 5 on their food hygiene rating. Which tends to mean that we go there, we give them some advice, give them some guidance, give them some help, and then leave them alone to get on with it until the next visit. And finally, finally, that dictates then how often we have to go back there. So higher risk premises, we do visit. The highest risk, an A, we'd be there every 6 months for the statutory initial visit, which would be the full hygiene visit. Doesn't mean there aren't maybe some revisits in between, but that's every 6 months for an A, it's every year for a B, and every 18 months for a C-rated premises. So a pub generally would be, if they're doing well, they're doing okay, would be 18 months. I think that covers it.
Thank you. That's really helpful, Alan, and very, very thorough as well. Chris, are you going to pick up the ESAG, or is it Gareth who's...
Pick up the FOIs.
Fine. So who's picking up the ESAG? Thanks, Chris.
So regarding the FOIs, it's a little bit misleading. The year before, we did have a particular difficult case investigation, which is ongoing, subject to a huge amount of social media interest and what have you. So hence the reason 199 the previous year was significant. So this year, whilst it has dropped and is welcome, actually it's still a lot more than previous years. And FOIs, I think everyone would agree, is a significant impact on our time. And whilst the Freedom of Information team are great, and they capture a lot of the information we give them and keep that back, they still got to come back to us. And of course, each FOI is little tweaks and can have a significant impact then on having to find that information again.
Thank you, Gareth. And
yes, just one additional point on that, Chair. As Gav mentioned, the FOI team gather statistics from us, so common questions, they don't come to us, they directly inquire us straight into the stats that they gather, and we're getting better and better at providing that information.
Thank you, Hugh. And Chris, I think you're picking up the events.
Thank you, Councillor. Just a point on FOIs as well, we tend to find the peaks and troughs are often associated with new legislation that's coming into force. So often there are duty holders or indeed companies that ask us about the number of premises perhaps that we have associated with a particular new item of legislation that they can commercially then tackle. So we do find that. And just anecdotally, this year alone, we've had a significant number to deal with just in the commercial team. Regarding the event safety advisory question, there isn't a specific threshold which is set. The event safety advisory notification process is voluntary. So what we tend to do is encourage larger events, riskier events where there is much greater footfall, to notify event safety advisory group of their intention to hold an event, and then in due course advice is given through the partners. Sometimes we look at in the past event organisers have looked at thresholds such as the difference perhaps between a temporary event notice and a full premises licence, perhaps 499 and below, but specifically for the notification within the event safety advisory group, no, there isn't threshold, and we tend to respond in terms of risk, so particularly new larger festivals where there is intelligence perhaps that there's been problems with those events in other districts, then we tend to tackle those, and we work very closely with our colleagues in the fire service and in the police on liaising with event organisers and indeed visiting event sites. Devorden Fest is a great example. We did an in-performance inspection of the Devorden Fest only a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you. And Councillor Strong, are you content with those comments?
Yeah, that's three really interesting answers. Clearly with ESAG, we've had a particular, or ESAG had a particular role with Armed Forces Day coming up and Martin's Law, the anti-terrorism legislation. That's really important. I understand why we need to be discreet about the FOIs. I think I know what you're talking about there. And many thanks for keeping us safe. I think my main danger from takeaways and pies is just I eat too many of them.
Well, there's a simple solution for that, Councillor Strong. We're going to have to monitor that, I think, as part of the public protection report next year. We're on to the next question, which is Councillor Buckler, please.
Thank you so much. It's a sort of fascinating area that the council has to deal with, and it's so huge that that your remit. I do admire you, and it's all very essential. And very good to see you flag up Devorden Festival, which has was a great event this this year. So thank you for that. The head of public protection post, as far as I understand, it remains unfilled. So perhaps you could just talk about whether that could undermine strategic oversight and that sort of thing. So if you could, if there are any gaps in your team, it'd be useful to hear about them. There seems to be a declining performance in some key areas in environmental protection, sort of fly tipping. You mentioned, actually, it was interesting to hear that you've had 2 prosecutions. Is that quite low? There's anecdotal evidence from residents who I talk to. There seems to be quite a lot of fly tipping. So, responses seem to have fallen in response in good time, I suppose, and noise complaints as well. And in fact, sort of in each area, there seems to be a reduction in the response times being done in a timely fashion. So, what would you say to that? So, what actions will be taken to improve declining responses and resolution times for environmental complaints like noise and pest, etc. Housing above takeaways. That's a very interesting area, isn't it? Because there are real problems that can be highlighted about overcrowding and fire safety, and how are you being proactive in addressing those concerns? I'd also, last question, have you seen an upsurge in animal welfare problems with the pressures of the cost of living crisis? Sometimes in rural areas, people are being overwhelmed, so it can be very difficult to spot. And could you break down the sort of proportion of call-outs to farms, pet owners, whether they're rural, whether they're in towns and villages? Thank you very much.
So there are quite a lot of questions there. We normally try and hold it to no more than 3 questions. So if you could be relatively brief in your responses, that would be very helpful. Jane, did you want to pick up the first of these about the head of public protection?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the questions, Councillor. Yes, if I take the first one, and then it will be Hugh and then Gareth for the subsequent questions. So, yes, it is the case that the head of public protection has remained vacant since Dave Jones's departure, and just to assure councillors that we are continuing to monitor the impact of that, and that our senior leadership team within the council has got it under review, with potentially looking at the options for how we might resolve that within what will be a wider review of portfolios across SLT. So yes, it will be captured within that. We're aware it's a gap. It hasn't had an impact, but that's thanks to the professionalism and experience of the colleagues with us today. But it is something that's certainly under review.
Thank you, Jane. And just moving on then to the other questions, some declining performance apparently, and questions about fly tipping, which residents are extremely interested in. And as Councillor Buckler has mentioned, 2 prosecutions that were successful. Could you perhaps expand on that a little? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Buckler, for your kind words as well about our public protection service. Decline of performance, which are in Table 1, particularly in, as you said, within my team, response to service requests in particular. 2 reasons for that, I would suggest. Firstly, our team is constantly trying to struggle and deal with and juggle an ever-increasing work demand, ever-increasing service requests. You'll see it towards the end of the report, we've had about a 34% increase since around about 2019 of service requests that we deal with, and that's a big number as well. We're dealing with about 2,500 service requests. So firstly, our team have to deal and juggle with that work that's coming in. But really importantly, what we're trying to do is focus on outcomes. And because of that, certain aspects of the work we have to give priority to. For example, moving on to the fly tipping, we've taken 2 successful prosecutions. That entails each prosecution entails a very substantial amount of work. The one prosecution, we worked closely with Newport and Torvine. It ended up in the Crown Court. And it was for 4 instances of fly tipping in Monmouthshire. The other prosecution as well takes a lot of time. So what we're trying to do in the team is not do everything all the time, everywhere, and give everything utmost priority. We're trying to risk assess. And our officers across Environment Public Protection, I should say, very skilled in risk assessing on a daily basis what we need to do, what are the priorities for the team.
Hugh, can I just try and guide you towards the specific questions? So a specific question around any declines and specifically on fly tipping, and then moving on to noise complaints and other matters such as animal welfare.
Certainly, check. So that's the reason why some of the statistics are declining. A, we're trying to prioritise, and B, the ever-increasing amount of workload. Fly tipping prosecutions, I think we're typical for rural authorities with the enforcement work that we take. And what we try and do when we get successful prosecution is maximise exposure of what we're doing and how we've done it. Housing above takeaways, yes, you'll see from the report we did we did not really deliver on the housing above takeaway work that we wanted to, because the reactive work dominated our workloads, but it is really a focus for 2025 this year to make sure that we do deal with our housing above takeaway inspections, because we see it as a really important piece of work. Animal welfare, Chair, I believe is Gareth.
So on noise complaints, that was one of the other questions Councillor Buckler asked. Any particular progress on that? More demand, or how is that working?
Again, our noise complaints are a very similar amount of complaints that we received last year. There has been a drop in the response times. Again, that's basically the amount of work officers trying to balance the workload across the range of complaints that come in. And sometimes we do, unfortunately, lose focus on our quick response times because we're given priorities to other areas of work.
So the total number of noise complaints were down from about 385 to 370, so around about the same, but the response within 3 working days has dropped quite a bit, which is partly explained by what you're saying. I suppose really the point there is that these are some of the highly visible or highly audible areas of concern by residents. Fly tipping is an enormously important area for residents, and noise complaints within localities can be extremely important. So I guess it's really just we will be interested in how much what interests residents is also reflected in our prioritisation. Animal welfare, who's going to pick that up, Gareth?
Thank you, Councillor Buckler. Animal welfare issues, rural, city, towns, villages, we probably could drill down into the data a little bit, but I think a bit more explanation about the background is Animal Welfare Act isn't statutory. The majority of our statutory work is under the Animal Health Act. And the Animal Health Act, a lot of the legislation that comes under that is related to farm animal welfare. So the majority of the animal health work within Monmouthshire, the animal health team, would be farm-based. Historically, the companion animal side and pet animals wouldn't fall within our remit, other than the fact that we deal with the licensing of breeders, boarding establishments, and those other activities that are caught within the licensing requirements, but a significant amount of them aren't. Historically, there was this sort of an informal agreement, like with the RSPCA, where they would pick up the private domestic issues that arise. We don't get a huge amount of them reported to us, but we have recently noticed an increase in this because, again, the RSPCA themselves have been subject to a lot of cuts and lower levels of funding, and as a result, they've agreed that any farm-based animals will come to local authorities, and it's difficult because whilst a lot of the legislation does cover farm animals, you can't ignore the fact that, you know, if there's another animal that isn't covered by that legislation but would be covered by the Animal Welfare Act, then, you know, you can't not deal with that. And some of the cases that we have dealt with, including horses, you know, need to be picked up. What it's resulted in, because again, a lot of the problems that we faced with, especially with cost of living and people struggling, is we don't get to hear about it until those animals are already suffering. You know, until somebody identifies and reports it, it's difficult to be able to deal with it. But when we do deal with it, then our the resource issues again come back to haunt us, because, you know, we don't have the facilities to take those animals and look after them. So that has a significant cost from our perspective, finding somewhere for them to be looked at. And also, we can't prevent, you know, somebody who maybe started something for the right reasons, but can no longer cope with the costs of looking after those animals. You know, you know, you're not looking to prosecute, you're looking to help, looking to support. But as we know, the veterinary costs are significant for anybody, let alone somebody who's struggling. So the point that we're making to government is that at the moment, the only way we can prevent this reoccurring is by taking a prosecution under the Animal Welfare Act in order to get a court ban on them being able to keep animals or restrict the numbers that they can keep. There's no other route of doing it. So our professional body, the Chartered Trade and Standards Institute, have just recently produced a policy paper on animal harm, specifically looking at this problem and saying, look, the Animal Welfare Act, relatively new in terms of a lot of the legislation we deal with, but it is 20 years old. It needs to be looked at, it needs to be developed. Yes, it's good that we can look at other forms of penalties and civil sanctions, but ultimately it's looking after the animals. How we deal with that is the most important, and that's a bit of work that we're really looking to government to take forward.
Thank you, and very thorough reply. I'm going to move on. A number of questions. I'll ask everyone to just try and be a little brief so we can make sure we get our third report ample time for air. And the next question is from, I've got Councillor Howells on my list.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, officers. Thank you. I did have a question on the special procedures, particularly healthcare professionals and acupuncture. I have declared a pecuniary interest in that, so I won't ask that question. But if I can take it up outside this meeting, I haven't asked the question though. But is it with you, Chris, that I'd take that up? So I'll address that with you. Thanks very much. I was slightly concerned to see there were 344 notifiable diseases. Do we have individual figures for E. coli in particular? We hear of swimmers catching E. coli in our rivers, and I just wonder what level of investigation goes into identifying the source of these cases as well.
Thank you, Councillor House. Yeah.
Yeah, we can break it down into the individual diseases, the E. coli's and salmonellas and the Campylobacters, and yeah, every one of them is investigated, and a history is taken of where they've been. It depends on the particular bug, on the incubation period of the bug. So you'd be looking, for example, Campylobacter. You could be looking as far back as 11 days before the person became ill. So we look at food histories, where they've been, farm visits, petting zoos, that kind of thing, any contact with animals, pets them at home. Have they been swimming in rivers is certainly a question. Have they been, in and locally as well? So yeah, it is a consideration. And then we can, on the database that we use called Tarian, which is used by the Health Board, we can tag certain aspects then, so that anybody else then investigating a similar disease will pick up that tag. Say somebody in Torfaen picked up somebody who'd been swimming about the same time, or been to another restaurant or a takeaway, for Councillor Strong's interest. If there was suspicion on a particular premises, then we could tag that then, so that any subsequent investigation can think, oh, hang on, there might be something going on there. And I think you might remember from last year's meeting, we talked about the outbreak that we had in Abergavenny. And again, it was when you get 2 or 3 notifications and they're all pointing at the same place and there's no other link between them, that's when we pounce.
Yeah, very important area, Councillor Howes. Are you content?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it links very much to the recent petting farm outbreak of Cryptosporidium in Cowbridge, which was, I think it was a petting farm shop that about 90, just shy of 90 people were ill, some very serious and some hospitalised. So, these things really do happen and they can be extremely serious. It's a really interesting area. Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Bond, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for the report, and echo what has been said about the great work that we appreciate from you and your teams to help keep us safe. Thank you very much for that. Just one question and a observation. The massive enforcement issue that is single-use vapes that is coming your way. Do you have enough resource to make that happen? How can we look at online purchasing? How are you going to be able to cope with that? It's a massive thing coming. I would suggest if we're going to make any dent into reducing the amount of waste going to the environment and use of illegal vapes. And the observation is fantastic to see that there's going to be a UK-wide pandemic resource exercise in the autumn. And I guess it's going to take some of your resources as well to be part of that. Thank you.
I'm glad you finished that sentence, Councillor Bond. It started that you were glad to see there was going to be a UK-wide pandemic. You had me slightly alarmed at first, but you finished the sentence and changed it entirely. Great question. So on the vapes and the double issue that Councillor Bond raises about online purchasing access to and the environmental impact of the waste of them, Gareth, are you picking that up?
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Yes, funding, always a debate. From the implementation with it coming in on the 1st of June, obviously being a devolved element, being Welsh legislation, Welsh Government have been very proactive in producing information for businesses and getting messages out. From a Monmouthshire perspective, my officers have been proactive in going out, visiting all the premises that we're aware of, having conversations. Bit of a mixed response. Your national chains and retailers obviously very, very well aware. Those smaller ones who are part of a wider association, they've got a fairly good grip on it as well. Some of the more independent ones just needed that little bit of support and advice, which has been provided. So from that perspective, I'm not overly concerned. What is concerning is the fact that by the time the legislation got in, there was already attempts to circumvent the legislation and bring in new types and change the models, and also the bigger issue is the fact that you can import these from abroad without going through a retailer. So that very much comes down to check supports. So there's discussions about funding for extra support there, but again, same with any other type of product that's imported, the amount of products that are imported, into this country through the various ports is huge, and you can only do a few of the checks. Obviously, they rely on the paperwork declaring what they are. A lot of the time, they're not. What has happened in the wider context of not just a single-use vape ban is HMRC have been given funding, which some of it has come to trading standards on a UK level. So where that funding has come down to Wales as a region, we work together under the auspices of Trading Standards Wales. So we've taken more of a regional approach. So in Newport, we've got a regional investigation team. Alongside that now, we're looking to appoint a regional tobacco lead and vape lead. So again, these two issues go hand in hand. There's no point looking at them separately. So that's the approach at the moment. So individually then as authorities, as we identify problems, then we can call on that resource to support us. And touch wood, up till now, we get the odd one or two premises, whereas colleagues in Newport, Caerphilly, they've got them all over the place. And all that happens is you walk in, you speak to the person who's there, and they are just filling in for the day. They don't know who owns the shop. All these normal problems that come up. So part of a much bigger organised crime issue, which is being looked at.
Thank you, and I think just recognising what Councillor Bond's saying about the really excellent planning that supports our ability to resist whatever might be coming down the line in terms of another pandemic. I think Councillor Bond's just recognising, and we would support. We're pleased to see that. It's reassuring. Councillor Bond, was there anything else that you happy with that?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. And moving on then to Councillor Pavia.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone, for the report. I'm just sort of comparing this report with the last year, and I think one of the things that resonates is this balance in reactive and proactive work, and it's a continued challenge, it looks like, in the report this year as well. With reactive service demand continuing to rise year on year, what actions are being taken to protect and prioritise that proactive preventative work, especially in areas like private housing standards? I think it was Owen that pointed to the fact that inspections of housing above takeaway vendors was an area that possibly a proactive area that had been postponed, but was hopefully going to be taken up in this financial year. Are there any other areas like that where that proactive work has been reduced or postponed due to service pressures, and what are the risk implications of that postponement or curtailment of work? And finally, what mechanisms are in place to regularly review and rebalance priorities through the year as demand fluctuates? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pavia, and that very much relates to partly what we were discussing last week in the risk assessments. I think your question around the rebalancing, if any, of risks. So it's very consistent with that. So yeah, who wishes to pick that up? It's you can pick that up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Pavia. Yeah, it is a juggle, and as you can see from the table, a lot of the reduction in performance for service requests is in my team. It really is having the importance to address that is a key focus in our service plans as to what outcomes we really need to achieve by the end of the year. It's interesting actually that we've got a couple of graduates who've been with us for the last couple of years. That part of the environmental health course is really about risk assessing what's important on a day-to-day basis. And that's now part of a training for environmental health officers, because there's an understanding where we've got work because of our wide-ranging legislative remit coming in from all directions. And specifically for us, the housing above takeaways, we understand the importance of that scheme. It's a scheme that we started about 11 years ago. We discovered a lot of issues in the properties that we were looking at, which are commercial kitchens, so there's an enhanced fire risk. And we do need to make sure this coming year that all of our officers are on board and take that into account in their daily balancing of, well, do I respond to perhaps for this barking dog complaint? How quickly do I respond to it? As opposed to, well, we've got housing above takeaway inspections to undertake and carry out. So it really is down to the officer level and making sure that the direction of the service is clear.
Hugh, thanks for that. Councillor Pavia was just referring to any possible postponement of proactive work due to those pressures. I guess that's part of the rebalancing, but is there any concern, I think, that you may have about that? I think that might lie behind Councillor Pavia's question.
Yes, certainly, Chair. As we said, we did not deliver on the housing above takeaways 2024 as we would have wanted to. It's not a statutory element of our work, but it's an area of work that we understand has maximum public health outcomes. So there is a risk to postponing and not delivering on that, because we see the public health value in it. And our service plan clearly focuses now in 2025 on the importance of that work. And so officers do need to juggle on a daily basis where we get the litter, the dog fouling, the environment protection complaints, the noise complaints, which affect all of our residents, how we embrace that work, still need to carry out that work, but we also need to deliver on other areas such as our housing above takeaway scheme.
Thank you, Alan and Hugh. And is there anything that you want to follow up there, Councillor Pavia? Are you content?
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then Councillor Newell, final question.
Thank you, Chair. And it's lovely to see my singing colleague there, Alan Thomas, as well, his beautiful bass voice. Nice to see you. First of all, this report is so interesting. I've read a few of these reports in my early career as a councillor. This one is fascinating. It's a brilliant, brilliant subject. Can I pay tribute, first of all, to the officers there and also the staff? Because reading through this isn't a job I would like to do. And my question is just aimed at the staff at Monmouthshire County Council must have to go into some really nasty and dangerous situations. So as part of my learning process, I'm just interested in who protects those staff, what mechanisms are in place, maybe to talk about their mental health and to make sure they're safe and their well-being. I'm just interested about how it works and how is it decided that are these staff going to go into such a dangerous situation, and at what stage do we involve the police? I think it's a fascinating subject, and like I say, I pay tribute to all of you.
Thank you, Councillor Newell. I'm not sure if Alan's going to sing the reply or state the reply. Feel free, Alan. Yeah, and if you could keep it brief, that would be very good.
Thanks, Councillor Newell. Nice to see you too. And were you? I don't know if you were there on Saturday at the Live on the Wire. The choir was singing there. It sounded fantastic. Back to your question. Yes, we do get into some very sticky situations. Every premises we go to can be a challenge, and depending on how well the inspection goes, if everything's okay, then it can be quite a friendly, encounter, really. And our staff are very, very skilled at dealing with people. We get a lot of compliments about certain members of staff who are exceptionally helpful. It doesn't stop us from taking enforcement action when we need to, when things aren't as they should be. Risk assessment is the answer, really. We do get the odd one where we need to take extra care, and we do call on the police when we need to, and we've got one coming up. Chris and I will be visiting one in a couple of weeks' time where we will be talking to our corporate health and safety advisors as well. Chris and I have got some experience in doing that corporate health and safety roles a few years ago, so health and safety is our background anyway. But yes, there are measures that we can take, and we've got a scheme where we, if it's not schemes such that if it's a contentious visit, then we've got good knowledge, and we know all the food premises in our patch. Our team is very, very experienced, and so if we know somebody's going to be difficult, very often we'll send 2 officers in for a start, for sort of corroboration and backup, not for any, for physical sort of assault risk, but sometimes some people are harder to deal with than others. Some people are harder to help than others. But when it does get particularly contentious, then we have got we've got powers under the Health and Safety at Work Act to take anybody along with us that we deem necessary. So we will take the police along, and we will be visiting a place with the police in a couple of weeks' time, and that's all being planned as we speak. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. At one point, I thought it was Tom Jones talking to Engelbert Humperdinck, and we moved straight on. But it was a nice light relief, and very important points that you just made about the training and the risk assessment that has to be done by our staff. So, thanks for clarifying that. That it's so important from our point of view that our staff themselves are safe in their work. So, thank you, Councillor Newell, for raising that question. I'm going to draw that discussion to and questions to and responses to a halt, and in so doing I would just note in 7.7 of the main report that you're stating that officers are confident they can sustain our high quality, well respected services. So we really appreciate that clear statement, but none of it is to hide the extraordinary amount of work that goes on that is very, very important to our residents, and we just, you've heard it from colleagues in the committee. We're very grateful, and if you'd be good enough, please, to pass that on to every member of staff, and say that what they do is hugely valued. And so we've spent about an hour really asking about that, so we understand it and we can share that ourselves more widely. So thank you very much indeed. And I move the report, and we will move on to the last item on the main reports. And we'll do the Shugle again here, I think, now. Okay, thank you everybody. We're just going to restart with the registration service performance report, item number 6 on our agenda, for us to consider and comment on the content. And Jane, did you want to give a brief overview of the report? And welcome to Jennifer to the meeting, the registration services manager, and we'll then move into questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. So again, very pleased to present the annual performance report for the Council's registration services to committee today. I'm going to speak very, very briefly. I just wanted to say that registrars meet families at critical times in their lives: births, deaths, marriages, becoming citizens. In this sense, it's very much a person-centred service, with registrars providing a calm and caring presence in what can be times of high emotion. It takes a considerable amount of logistical planning, particularly at high peak points of demand over summer, for example. A genuine customer-led approach to providing a best experience for families. And alongside of this, a meticulous care around the safe storage and collation of the county's precious statistical records. So it's a really vital part of the council's provision of services to our communities, something that will go unseen unless you need them. And I'm really pleased that Jennifer's here today to share what is a really positive performance report again for this part of the council's work.
Thank you, Jane. And Jennifer, if you wanted to pick out any key points, we've read the report, but if there's anything you really want to pick out, please do.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. My name is Jennifer Walton. I'm the Superintendent Registrar and the Registration Services Manager for Monmouthshire. Thank you for taking the time to consider my report. It's been another very busy year for registration. Particularly, the ongoing story at the moment is the marriages staying at very high levels, really record levels, particularly if you look at the links that I shared in my report for England and Wales. It does take quite a lot of management to make sure we don't have that big a team. So it's a daily juggling exercise to keep everything covered. But if there's anything that you'd like to ask, anything more details that you would like, I will answer as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And just opening it to any questions that committee members may have. I see Councillor Bond, you were first with your hand up. I think it was a bit of a race on between yourself and Councillor Strong, and you won it. Councillor Bond.
Anyway, I'm not bothered either way. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for the report, and thank you for all the wonderful work that you do. My question is around registration and percentage within statutory time for both births and deaths. So I see that I think you've said that it's the Welsh, within the Welsh guidelines or standards, but less than your target, and particularly 29 registrations out of target time for deaths. I guess that's a very difficult time for people, and delays with probates, with everything else that goes on, whether that has had an impact on delivery for the people who are obviously suffering after the death of somebody. So just whether there might be issues and what might be happening towards resolving them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. And it may be worth clarifying in the language that's used about the targets regarding deaths. Obviously, this is about registrations of the deaths, and similarly with births and marriages and so on. But Jennifer, did you want to pick that up?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Councillor Bond. As far as the births are concerned, that's quite an easy one just to relate to at the moment. We have such few births taking place within Monmouthshire now that each birth has a significant percentage attached to it. So for that registration, it was one that was outside the target date due to the family's choice. They were unable to get in sooner, and that then brought us down. With the deaths, it's a longer, a bigger picture. We've had a significant change this year with the medical examiner's role becoming statutory, and a whole new process which has taken quite a long time to embed. Because that came in September, not all of the deaths, the targets we have only been set from September on because the statutory system changed. So again, it's a lower number of registrations that we're looking at than we would normally be looking at. So again, they have a higher a greater percentage on impact on the numbers. I would expect that next year we will be back within the targets set by the General Register Office. So these figures reflect they are family members or people, informants who are unable to get in within the 5 days. So if you look, the appointments offered at the bottom of the table, so every day I'm constantly reviewing our diary and appointment availability suitability. So I'm confident that we are able to offer informants appointments within the 5-day time frame. But for whatever reason, if that family member can't make it in, so if they've been away or they've got other commitments, they can't get to us within the 5 days, that then will take it over, and that's having an impact. So hopefully I'm satisfied that we can't do any more at this stage because we've got the appointments there for them. But hopefully by next year you'll see then that should have gone up. It's gone up significantly from last year, so I think we will be within target by next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Councillor Bond. And Councillor Strong?
Thank you. And particularly thanks for allowing me to come along to the British citizenship ceremony last week. And I'm sure Councillor Howells will confirm that they are the most lovely things to go to. Two questions or 2 points. I think we've all been struck by that remarkable statistic about Monmouthshire being the highest percentage increase in wedding ceremonies, 2019, 2022. Yeah. Is there any sense of why? Have they been skewed by perhaps an artificially low number in 2019 or an artificially high number? And how has the trend continued? I mean, we're hoping it's not too much Marion Haste, repent at leisure going on there, but I don't suppose you collect figures on that that side of things. Secondly, and I asked this question last year, but I think the answer might be different this year. You refer to the constant development in legislation and changes in the local environment. I'm not quite sure what changes in the local environment mean, but I appreciate something on that. What legislation is or is there particular legislation in the pipeline that you're thinking of? I think we're aware of the government intention to extend the period of leave to remain to 10 years, and that will affect application of British citizenship. Probably a bit too early for you to comment on that, but is there anything else that's more in the pipeline at the moment? Thank you.
It may well be, Jennifer, that it's just love is in the air in Monmouthshire, that's driving all this, but you'll be able to help us.
Thank you, Councillor Strong, and thank you for your kind words about the citizenship ceremonies. Initially in 2022, it was the backlog from COVID. So we were finally free of restrictions, and there were a lot of ceremonies that had been postponed and cancelled. So initially it was that. As to why the figures have continued at this level, I agree, love is in the air in Monmouthshire. We have some beautiful venues. We've become quite a destination for people. We have people coming from across the country to get married here, from London, from Northumberland, all parts of Wales. It is a very, very popular place to come because we've got such lovely venues. And as for the legislation, so a lot of the legislation that's coming is technical legislation as to the way we register. There are going to be a lot of changes coming through. They're trying to digitise legislation. We're still very paper-based. We're still very traditional. We still use our registrar's ink and our fountain pens. So they are looking at ways to digitise things, and that is coming through. But there are a lot of demands on government time at the moment and money, and we're not sure as when those changes will start to take effect. But we're just alive to the fact that they are coming down the line. Thank you.
Councillor Strong, are you content?
Yeah, thanks for that. And that's particularly interesting about people coming into Monmouthshire to get married. I guess that might be the Monmouthshire diaspora of people who have grown up in Monmouthshire and then are coming back. And perhaps it highlights that we need these people to come back, not just for their weddings, but to stay, live and work here. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, a very interesting statistic, isn't it? So moving on to Councillor Buckler.
Hello. Thank you, Chair, for that. Very sort of, I mean, this is actually just, and I hope you don't think me nostalgic, but my children are very proud to have been born in Monmouthshire. So it seems sad in a way that we have so few births here now. But it's an interesting fact, I must say. Can you sort of talk a bit about the sort of system pressure during peak season? Because you obviously, your ceremonials ceremonial staff are sort of part-time quite often, and does that create strain during high demand periods? And, do you find that it impacts on your service? You have the 7-day marriage registration time frame during which you have to, adhere to. So, is that a difficulty to maintain? And the last thing I'd like to find out your views on the sort of the government response to the Law Commission's review on marriage law reforms, which doesn't seem to be forthcoming at the moment, and bearing in mind it will have an impact on your service and how you run it. Are you at all concerned about the lack of progress in that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buckler, and Jennifer.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, it is a very difficult exercise through the summer to manage all of the demands of the service. I think one of the biggest increases we've seen in marriages since COVID is that we get a lot of marriages now Monday to Friday, so that's often covered by the office staff as well. So it is basically all the staff sometimes will be out on conducting ceremonies. So that does have an impact on the number of appointments we can offer within the office. So that's why it is this juggling act that I'm looking at every day to make sure that we are able to offer appointments within the statutory timeframes. I do have an absolutely brilliant team. I am very, very proud of them. They are great if somebody goes sick or if there's any kind of problem, and I put a message out to say, can anybody pick this up? I am generally inundated with responses that people will do that because they really enjoy their job, and they are more than happy to support each other, excuse me, if something has cropped up. So I'm very lucky that we've never failed to get to a ceremony, and touch wood, that will never ever happen. But as I said, it is a lot of pressure over the summer because that's when the ceremonies are concentrated. The Law Commission report, we still don't know at this time what the response is going to be. Whatever recommendations are accepted by the government, obviously will take some time, will need to be looked at how they are logistically going to work. The government is quite clear that it still expects us to have a role in trying to identify predatory marriage, sham marriage, forced marriage, so there is still a very specific role that registrars will need to look at and be involved in, and because we've had no response, we've got no idea what the government's plan might be or what they will go with. So it is very much a watching brief at this time, but whatever recommendations are upheld and whatever changes come forward, we will manage as best we can and do our best then to continue to protect the public as we go forward.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Councillor Buckler, are you content with that? Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear you've got such a well knitted team, and that that people using that service will feel the fact that you really enjoy what you do, and that when people come to you in times of stress, when someone's died, that you are connected, and I think it's great. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Buckler, and great comments. I'm sure you speak for all of us in that regard. It's great to see, and I know I've experienced that myself, so it's really good to see. Can I just finish with one final question, Jennifer? Just for clarity, I was trying to unpick what was registered and what's actual births registered and actual deaths, and I wasn't sure, so I noted down births at 600, this is for the last year, births at 633, deaths at 1,019. Are these actual within Monmouthshire, or is that, have I got that wrong?
So I do apologise, it's not clear. I'll make sure next year that I'm clearer with how I set those figures out. So the births within Monmouthshire are 21. The 633 are the births that we have registered on behalf of Torvine, births that took place at the Grange. The deaths then, it is 1,019, those other deaths within Monmouthshire.
So the number of births again, please?
Is 21.
So 21 births in Monmouthshire last year. and 1,019 deaths, which seems like an extraordinary variation for any community with a long-term future. Is that a constant trend? It's not a one-off year, or have we seen that in previous years?
No, it is just because the maternity unit closed in Neville Hall, so all the births now are taking place at the Grange. So all the Monmouthshire residents, or the majority of the Monmouthshire residents having babies and are doing so at the Grange. So that is where the registration takes place, and it's only the home births really that we're looking at now in Monmouthshire.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get to is within Monmouthshire, whether it's registered somewhere else or but actual residents of Monmouthshire, how many births were there, how many deaths were there? Do we have that actual information?
That isn't actually a figure that I can pull out for you, because if people go to hospital, residents could pass away at any hospital or anywhere else outside Monmouthshire, and I don't have access to that figure.
Okay.
And families who live within Monmouthshire could choose to have their children in Powys or Merthyr or Torvine. And again, I can't pull that figure out for residents, unfortunately.
It's a clear answer, Dan. Thank you. So I thank you for the questions, thank you for the responses, and I move the report. And thanks very much, Jennifer, for the report, but also if you'd be good enough to take back to colleagues that, we really appreciated it, and really some good insight, and value the work that they do and the way they do it. So please do pass that on. Very grateful. Thank you again. So we're just moving rapidly through the closing items of the agenda. Members of the committee, in front of you is the work planner and also the actions that are stated clearly. We have a subsequent item on the action list for our July meeting, which is on the forward work plan. So item 8 is the forward work programme. Item 9 is the confirmation of the minutes of 29th April. We weren't able to do that confirmation last week because it was a special meeting, but we're now confirming those for the minutes of the 29th April. Are there any issues or corrections? I see none, so we confirm those minutes. Sorry, Councillor Bond, I do see you now. You're muted. Councillor Bond, you're muted.
Thank you. It was very quick through there. So the Bring Report Committee on the work being done with schools health research, there's no date yet for that one action. And the scrutiny on the 9th and the 15th of July is general, right, grant, rather than the call-in, particularly this Levelling Up Fund or the SPF.
So I'm just trying to understand what your question is, Councillor Bond.
The question is, so the 4 actions, so the forward, so it's added a report to the Committee on the Work with Schools Health Research Network. When's that going to be? We've not got a date for that yet. And the remind officers the attention to scrutinise grant funding. It was particularly the SPF.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bond.
I don't see that in the title of the agenda items.
Okay, thank you. Robert, did you want to pick that up?
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Bond. Yeah, there aren't fixed dates for either of those yet. The slight problem we have is that our agendas are already completely full until, by my count, February. And in fact, I'm trying to figure out now whether we're going to have to put 1 or 2 special meetings in to cover all of these extra things. So there aren't dates yet. But that I have not forgotten, just to reassure you.
It's the reason why we've had a number of special meetings already, and just trying to get the balance right. So yeah, it's a constant issue. But thanks for raising it, Councillor Bond. So we've got the next meeting on the 9th of July.
Perhaps reminder again about the workshop on the 16th of June.
And Robert, did you want to just
a final reminder then, while we're on the subject, just about the workshop on the 16th of June that was added, separate to the official meetings. Just another reminder.
Thanks, Robert. And also thanks, I should say to Robert, for Robert gets to me summaries of these meetings normally within 24 hours of the meeting. And, I go through them right away. And I have to say, there's very little I need to ever change or add. He does a great job with that, so thank you, Robert, for that.
I would have to mention Hazel's massive help with that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I should say Hazel as well. And these are, to communicate to cabinet members with the aim of saying, look, these are the principal issues that have been raised, and also to residents to say, here are the principal issues. So it is very important. And just want to register that. So we've got the next meeting lined up, and we will close this meeting now. And thank you very much for all your contributions during the morning. Whatever you're doing in the afternoon, I hope you enjoy it. Cheerio for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.